Big surprise, check it out. Utah is snowing again. This is the greatest snowfall on history ever for the state. And there are reasons why I'm not investing in Utah. And no, it's not what you might be thinking. It's not the snow, it's not the flooding they're predicting this spring. There's three major reasons why I don't buy real estate in Utah. And actually that goes for a lot of people's backyards. If you want to know where I'm investing and also all the places I never would, including Utah, I'm going to give you those reasons right now. We are talking about why I am no longer investing in the state of Utah, the state that originally made me financially free. And no, it's not just what's happened in the last 3 years since the pandemic. And no, it's not the record snowfall or, some of the weather problems that we've been having. There are other reasons. And just like most investments, it all comes down to three magic letters: ROI. In other words, where are you going to make your money perform and actually give you the most return? And right now, we got some big problems with the state of Utah, and frankly, for a lot of other states in the country right now as well. So I'm a native to Seattle, Washington, and then after college, moved to Utah to go to college. And it's while I was in college that I bought my very first property. I found out that I wasn't going to be a doctor. I didn't have the smarts or the brains for chemistry. And I had met three other gentlemen that had each made over $10+ million in real estate. And I'm like, that's the ticket. That's what's going to set me free. And when I bought my very first house, it was cool because my wife and I moved in it, rented out the basement, had a separate mother-in-law apartment, and that covered the whole mortgage. So we went from renting a hole in the ground to living in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom home for free. Then because we bought it so far below market, we used the equity to buy our second house a year later. We used the equity in that house and house hacked ourselves into our third house. And that's when I had a track record of buying below market and doing my lease option strategy that I write about in my books or here on my YouTube channel. And that's when I started attracting other people that said, hey, if I give you the money for a down payment, can we split the profits and you kind of do all the work? Well, 25 homes later, I was making over $12,000 a month. And I had just graduated college. I was able to quit my job because my wife and I kept our expenses under $3,000 a month. We were bringing in $12,000 a month. And after quitting, all of that, my portfolio doubled the next year, and then it doubled again. And that's when everything started taking off. And yes, Utah's where all of this originally happened. But I actually haven't bought real estate in Utah for years, except for my primary residence. And I'll tell you why. There are 324 major real estate markets around the United States. Let me ask you this question. What's the likelihood that you live in one of the top 5 markets out of 324? And what are the chances that one of them is Utah? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to 3 of my favorite metrics that I use when determining where I'm going to buy real estate. And I'm going to help you understand why I don't buy in Utah, but also why you may not want to buy in your backyard. Check it out. There are 3 main reasons to avoid Utah, but these guidelines apply to real estate in any market. One of them is price inflation, hard limits of growth, and the last one, cash flow potential. And frankly, there's a dozen metrics that I use, but these 3, they draw a hard line in the sand of where I will and where I won't invest. So let's talk about how these actually specifically apply to Utah and then maybe where you live. All right, check it out. The first market force we're going to talk about price inflation. The reason why this is important, because in the last 3 years, we've seen a lot of inflation of pricing. In fact, housing affordability has increased 71% over the last 36 months. And what it means is that wherever you live right now, all of a sudden you may have been priced out of the market. Look at what's happening in Salt Lake City. The Salt Lake County median home price rose from $291,000 in 2017 to $527,000 in 2022, nearly doubling in price in just 5 years. This is great news for someone that owns real estate that's looking to sell, but it's definitely a warning sign for investors when they're looking at actually buying and scaling. You're telling me that the median home price now costs $500,000 instead of what used to be $300,000? That's crazy. And the question is, can you get the same ROI out of it? Can you get the same cash flow out of it? And the answer is no. Then that also can't be a place where you're going to bet your investment strategy. This second one is actually a little bit more specific to Utah. It's about hard limits for growth. If you've actually ever been here, we live inside of in the main part of Utah where the most of the population is, we live inside of these 2 mountain ranges, and you've got all this housing in the middle. Check it out. As housing demand grows in Utah, they are running into the brutal realities of Utah's geography. Cities like Houston, Phoenix, Charlotte, they can grow basically as large as they need to, whereas every major urban center in Utah, like Salt Lake City, UV, St. George, they face mountainous terrain and constant water shortages that put a hard stop on growth. And the third market force, perhaps one of the most important, has to do with cash flow potential, because prices have gone up, but guess what's happened to average rent increases over the last 3 years? If we've seen the increase in affordability go up 71%, rents have only gone up an average of 6% a year. So for over that same 3-year period of time, that's 71% compared to 18%. In other words, you buy a house today, and until rents catch up, that increased mortgage, especially at those interest rates, might eat you alive. There are 2 main ways to make money in real estate: appreciation at the sale of a home and cash flow from rent payments along the way. Cash flow is always favorable to long-term appreciation, and right now in Utah, monthly rent has not caught up with soaring mortgage prices, much like the rest of the country, making cash flow on a newly purchased property nearly impossible. And I'm going to tell you right now, I am not going to lay out a whole bunch of money for property, even if a bank is putting up 80% of the money, to go cash flow negative. Because you can't bet on rates coming down and refinancing and maybe someday it'll be positive if you're getting eaten alive at $300-400 a month. Well, what does that amount to year after year after year? Someone that becomes desperate, someone that sells when they might be underwater, someone that might go bankrupt. I mean, it's awful. If it's not going to produce cash flow, I ain't touching it. So I've been waiting for the market to do what it's doing right now, because right now I'm buying more real estate than I ever have before. But I've learned a lot along the way, and here's what I've learned. If you buy in the top 5 markets where population is moving to, where there's huge demand, where the rental prices are keeping up, where large economies are moving in, large businesses are moving in, creating tens of thousands of new jobs, all of that starts producing the right kind of environment for winning in the game of real estate. Right now, my ROIs are higher than they've ever been. Over the last couple of years, I'm averaging 34% a year on my money. With compound interest, that's my money doubling every other year. And so if you take a look at how I used to perform against stock market, 401k, IRA, these are single digit ROIs on the 30-year average. I'm outpacing them 27-1 when I get my average 25% ROI. At 34%, it's crazy. It's like 70-1. And I got people all over the world watching my YouTube channel that will say, Kris, I'll partner with you 50-50. I'll take my 401k savings, my IRA, I'll take equity for my home. Let's get these higher ROIs that you have a track record with nearly $2 billion on. And by going into those markets, guess what ends up happening? We produce really high ROI, and then you let the market do what the market's gonna do, and we end up winning. There is a huge divide, a gap between the poor and the wealthy, and it's getting worse. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But the information is available and the opportunities are available at scale to do what wealthy people do. It's doing what smart people do. And it starts with buying real estate before you start buying businesses. And if you don't know how to do that, there's definitely a link below where you can learn about partnering with me. And I'm gonna tell you right now, hands down, we're gonna crush it. Begs the question, where should you be investing? The calculations that go into real estate investment are definitely not the same as buying a house for yourself. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Find an experienced mentor who understands what makes a good investment deal and where to find them. And this is what I've done every year. I publish a report on the top 5 markets where I'm buying real estate, and then I show my track record on thousands of homes. I'm gonna tell you that there are people all over the country that watch my social media, look at my track record, get with my team, and they go through a qualification process, and what they're looking for is an opportunity to become a real estate investor. But there's no easier way of doing that than partnering with someone that knows what they're doing. Listen, you can either learn how to do it on your own, and this is what some people do, and if you guess wrong, you do it wrong, or you limit yourself to your backyard, this is where people can get really hurt. On my side, I've done 6,500 transactions. That means that I've got a tried and true proven performa. I've been able to invest pre-2008, post-2008. I look at the economy right now, and while we are in a place where we've never been before, history repeats itself. The cycles repeat itself. And if you've got even just $50,000 sitting in a 401k, an IRA, or equity in a home, and you're like, I just don't know what to do, you're definitely gonna wanna click the link below and just learn about why hundreds of people all over the world partner with me and the kind of things that we're doing in the game of wealth building and real estate. Click the link, let me show you. Okay, Kris Krohn, what are these markets? Where are you investing? Why are you investing there? If you watch this video right here, I'll show you where I'm investing and where I've won the most this last year and where I plan on winning next.